Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. So being that, in my opinion, the best season 4 reading is coming up, I wanted to give you guys all of my summer book recommendations and talk about my very ambitious summer TBR. In my opinion, there's absolutely nothing better than laying by a pool or at the beach with a summer book. Literally nothing better. So all of these books that I'm going to show you guys are perfect for that atmosphere, or I just think that they could be read in the summer and could be really appreciated in the summertime. First, we're gonna do all of my summer book recommendations and then we'll move on to my TBR. So we're gonna start with the young adult. So this is young adult romance and mystery. Okay, so of course I couldn't film this video without talking about The Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. This is like the most atmospheric summer series literally ever, and the books are so short and easy to read. I think I read all 3 of these in like a week. There's a whole show about it. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what the series is about by now, but in case you don't, we're following our main character Belly, and every summer she stays at this beach house with her mom and her brother and her mom's best friend and her 2 sons. And so now this is the summer when Belly shows up, and she's kind of had like her glow up, and so now the boy that she's been in love with, one of the brothers, is finally taking notice to her, and so is the other brother. So there's like a huge love triangle, and I just think that this is such a fun series to read this summer. If you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend, and then you can watch the show after. So it's a super fun time, and season 3, the final season, is coming this summer in July. You should read these before the new season comes out so that you could kind of catch up and just be with the rest of us watching season 3. And next I have The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. So I loved this book when I first read it. I read it like 3 years ago. That's crazy. I read it like 3 years ago, and I had so much fun with this one. So we are following Meredith, who is going on a family vacation because there's a huge like family wedding happening. So her and her parents are going to this wedding, and she recently lost her sister like a year and a half ago. So that's still very like fresh on her mind for her. So we're dealing with that grief too. So if that's something that triggers you a little bit, I would definitely steer away from this one. But while they're at this wedding, the whole big family, like this huge family, plays a game of assassin, and it's just so fun watching them all play this giant game of assassin. And there is a romance between our main character Meredith, Whit, I think his name is Whit, but anyways, we're following their young adult romance, and it's just so sweet and so cute, and there's a lot of Taylor Swift references in here, which is always fun. So would highly recommend this one. It is just so fast-paced, and I haven't read any of her other books. I don't know why, but I need to. Okay, so those are the only 2 young adult romance recommendations that I have. So now I have 2 young adult mystery recommendations. So first, of course, the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I love this series so much. Again, I read it like 3 years ago. This was actually the book that got me back into reading. We're basically following Pip, who is doing her senior project, and for her senior project she decides to uncover a murder mystery that happened in her town because she doesn't believe that the suspect is actually guilty. So you're basically following her trying to solve this murder and figure out who actually committed the murder. And personally, the 3rd book in the series was my favorite, and then this one, and then the 2nd one. So the whole series is so good, and I can't remember if this is actually set in the summertime or not, but in my head it gives like a perfect summer vibe. So, and then next I have another Holly Jackson book, which is 5 Survive. This one is so fast-paced because it's all taking place in the span of one night. So we're following our main character Red, who is on a spring break vacation with her 5 friends. Their RV breaks down and they're suddenly targeted by some people with a sniper, and basically the whole time you're trying to figure out who it is that it is attacking the friend group. And obviously the title is 5 Survive, so you know that only 5 of the 6 friends end up surviving. So good. I would highly recommend, and it is so fast-paced, and I just love Holly Jackson so much. Okay, so the next genre that we're gonna move on to is romance. So I could not film this video without talking about Queen Emily Henry. Look how pretty this stack is. Are we kidding? Can we just take a moment? So beautiful, so beautiful. So honestly, I would recommend all of her books. I think that they are all fantastic. I love each and every one of them, but for the most atmospheric summer vibe, I would recommend these three. They all take place over the summer. I didn't realize that until I read Funny Story and Great Big Beautiful Life, and I was like, these all take place over the summer. But these three, Beach Read, Happy Place, and People We Meet on Vacation, I feel like they all give the most amount of like summer atmospheric vibes. My vocabulary is awful, I apologize, but I actually really want to do a reread of Beach Read over the summer because I feel like I didn't appreciate it as much as I could have on my first read. So anyways, we are following Gus and January, who are both writers. They're both authors. January is a romance author and Gus is a literary fiction author. So they write completely different genres and they get stuck living next door to each other in 2 beach houses over the summer, and they're both experiencing heavy cases of writer's block. So they kind of like strike up this deal to help each other out. So their deal basically consists of Gus writing a romance book for the summer and January writing a literary fiction book over the summer, and so they're both like taking each other on field trips so that they can learn each other's genres, and the whole idea is to get them out of their writer's block, get them out of their ruts. And that's exactly why I feel like I want to reread this, because it follows writers, and now that I'm writing my own book, I feel like this is right up my alley, and I just have so much more appreciation for Emily Henry's writing now. Would definitely recommend this one. Obviously it's taking place at beach houses, and literally look at the cover. Is that not summer on a cover? Okay, and then next I have People We Meet on Vacation. So in this one we are following Alex and Poppy, and for years they went on vacations every single summer together to like the craziest places. Like they were going everywhere together up until they had a big falling out, and we don't really know what that big falling out is, but it led them to not talking for years. And then Poppy decides to invite Alex on one more vacation. After years of not speaking, they decide to get together to go on another vacation together, but there's a lot of tension between them, and again, we don't know why. So we're flipping back and forth between the present timeline of them at their current vacation, and then the past timeline follows all the different summers on their vacations until we lead up to the big falling out and we finally learn what happened between them and why they stopped being friends. So if you love friends to lovers and second chance romances, I feel like you would really enjoy this. And then we have Happy Place. So up until I read Funny Story like a week ago, this was my favorite Emily Henry book. I absolutely adore this book. Again, would love to reread this at some point. So in this one we were following Harriet and Wynn, who were the perfect couple for years, ever since college, and now I think they're in like their late 20s, early 30s maybe, but they have since broken up and they called off their engagement, but they haven't told their best friends yet. And now there's a surprise vacation with the two of them and all of their best friends, because this is like an annual tradition where the two of them and their 4 closest best friends go on this big trip together. And so they're on this vacation with all of their friends, and they're having to lie to them and pretend like they're still together. And meanwhile we are going back and forth between the present timeline and the past timeline, starting from when they met in college and leading up to their big falling out, and we learn why they broke up and why this perfect couple broke up. And like I said, those are like the 3 that give me the most atmospheric summer vibes, but the rest of her books, Funny Story is my favorite book of hers. Book Lovers, so good. Great Big Beautiful Life, so good. I would just recommend any of her books. And next I have Wildfire by Hannah Grace. So this is the 2nd book in the Maple Hill series, and this is definitely my favorite book in the whole series. I feel like, first of all, because it takes place at a summer camp, and I think that that is so fun. And so basically we're following Aurora and Russ, and Russ is one of the guys on the hockey team in this whole series. So if you know the series, you know the hockey team, and he's part of the hockey team. They have a one-night stand in the beginning, and they don't realize that they're both going to be stuck at the summer camp together for the whole summer, and then they end up getting stuck at the summer camp together for the whole summer, counseling the same group of kids. But both of them have such complicated home lives with their families, and so it gets really deep into that. And I always appreciate her books because there's a perfect balance between the romance and the family dynamics and all of the things that the characters are going through personally. And she knows how to write communication. The characters never have any miscommunication, and even if there's a little bit for like a second, they quickly turn it around. They quickly learn how to communicate again, and I love that in romance books. I hate when the characters don't know how to communicate. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then next I have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I know I said before that The Summer I Turned Pretty is the most atmospheric summer book. This is actually the most atmospheric summer book. Okay, so in this one we're following Percy and Sam, and we're following past timelines over 6 years, and I'm pretty sure Percy moves to this beach, like she has this beach house that she goes to every summer with her family, and right next door is Sam and his whole family, and they quickly become best friends, and you're just seeing how wholesome that whole dynamic is. And they're basically, I think they're kids when they meet, but then they start growing up and then feelings are involved once they start kind of noticing each other that way. But then eventually they have this big falling out that we don't really know what happened. And then in the present timeline, Percy has to come back to the town for Sam's mother's funeral, and so now they're like back together even though there was this huge falling out between them. And so we're flashing back between this one weekend in the present and then all those 6 years from when they met until they had their big falling out. I enjoyed, I'd say probably like 75% of this book, or up until we learned about their big falling out. I think everyone who has read this book can completely agree with me that the reason that they had their falling out ruined the whole book, but I would still recommend it. One, for the setting, but also just because it's a really good book. And next we have The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This, honestly, if I'm being so honest, this wasn't my favorite book at all. I think I rated it like 2.5 stars or maybe 3. I can't remember, but it wasn't my favorite at all. If I'm being so honest, I can't remember the exact plot of this, but basically it's a fake marriage trope. They have to pretend to be married because Liam's family believes that he's married to this girl, and so they have to go to his sister's wedding with his entire family pretending like they're married. And then once the couple started falling for each other, I feel like it was very lust driven. I feel like there was a lot of physical feelings rather than emotional feelings, and I don't particularly like that in my books. But for anyone who loves Christina Lauren and their books, or maybe you just like more lusty romances, I would highly recommend this one. And next we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. If you know, you know, I love to talk about this book. Any excuse to talk about this book, I will talk about this book. So in this book, we are following Emma and Justin, and Justin posts this Reddit tweet talking about his experience with his relationships and basically saying how every time he breaks up with someone, that person immediately goes off to find their soulmate. Like the next person that they date is always their soulmate, the person that they end up with and get married to. And so he posts this online and Emma sees it and is like, hey, that's literally exactly the same situation with me. Like I literally go through the same exact thing. And so they get into communication because of that. And since Emma is a traveling nurse, she decides to pick her next location to be where Justin lives, which I'm pretty sure, I forget where this takes place, but she ends up choosing to locate to his location. And then they strike up a deal together to date each other, meet all the criteria for what they usually meet in each other's relationships, and then they break up, and then they would theoretically move on to find their soulmates and the people that they're supposed to spend the rest of their lives with. But then also they both are dealing with pretty heavy situations inside their own family dynamic, and as always, Abby Jimenez balances the romance with these heavy topics so beautifully, and she just handles them so well. And genuinely, this book was so funny and so sweet. I have so many tabs of where I was just dying laughing. Like I literally wrote in the book at times like LOL, like I'm literally laughing out loud. And I just have so many quotes highlighted because it was just so beautifully written and so funny, and I would highly recommend this. I will never stop recommending this book. And the last romance recommendation that I have is the whole Chestnut Springs series. I have yet to read the 5th and final book in the series, which is Hopeless, but I have read Flawless, Heartless, Heartless, Powerless, and Reckless, and 2 of which were 5 stars, which I feel like is so rare for me to find 2 5-star books in a single series, especially a romance series. I feel that has never happened to me. If you told me a year ago that I would be reading cowboy romances and just eating them up and literally enjoying them so much, I would have been like, who are you talking about? This series has changed my entire perspective on romance books. Elsie Silver, I want to read everything that girl writes forever. So like I said, this is a 5-book series, and over the span of the 5 books, you are following a family who lives on a ranch in Chestnut Springs. We have their dad, and then we have 3 brothers. We have Cade, Rhett, and Bo, and then their 2 best friends, which is Jasper and Theo. And so over the span of the books, you are following those 5 guys in each book, and then their significant others that either they meet or they already knew beforehand. And so in this one, in Flawless, we are following Summer and Rhett. So Rhett is one of the brothers. He's a famous bull rider, but he's kind of getting into like scandals and stuff like that. He's just not being very mature with his public image, and so his agent hires his daughter, who works for him and stuff like that, to kind of babysit him for a while, just make sure that he doesn't get into any more scandals or any more trouble, and kind of just to regain his image that he once had. And so we're following the two of them slowly like falling in love eventually, and sort of like crossing that boundary between like a work relationship and their romantic relationship. I'm telling you, this is like the most wholesome book series literally ever. If you enjoy the found family dynamic, or cowboy romances, or books that make you kick your feet and start giggling out loud, this is the series for you. It is so good. I've already been talking for so long and I haven't even gotten to my TBR yet. If you're still here, I love you. Genuinely, I appreciate you so much. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the thriller recommendations that I have. So first we have The Villa. So in this, we are following two different timelines. We are following a band in the 1970s who it's giving like Daisy Jones and the Six, and then we're following the present timeline, which is Emily and Chess, who are two best friends going on a vacation together. Except more recently their relationship has strained a little bit, so they're hoping kind of that this vacation together can kind of rekindle their friendship a little bit. And so the two of them are going to stay in this villa in Italy, and there's this known bad thing that happened at this villa. And then we're flashing back to the past timeline with this band, and you figure out the bad thing that happened, and it happened with the band. And then more in the present timeline, Emily starts digging into the history of this house and sort of finds the history of the band and everything that happened there. And there's just a lot of drama with both timelines, and it is just so good and so entertaining. And I always say this, it is literally the perfect mix between Daisy Jones and the Six and The White Lotus. So good, so good. And next I have another book of Rachel Hawkins. We have Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, and honestly I plan to read all of her books forever. Both of these books for me were 5 stars. I genuinely had such a great fun time reading both of these books. Okay, so in this one we were following Lux, who basically she moved to Hawaii because of a boy. Like, her boyfriend is the sole reason why she moved to Hawaii, because they have this big dream of traveling together. He has a boat, they're going to travel the world together. So basically her whole life revolves around her boyfriend right now. And these are like college students, by the way. I think they're all in their early 20s. And so then Nico, her boyfriend, gets approached by these two like younger 20 girls, and they're like, I will give you this amount of money if you sail us to this private island. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, we need this money. We're going to do this. And so the four of them take off to this island that has a crazy messed up history. Like, no one wants to go to this island. Like, really bad things have happened on this island, but they're going anyway because this couple, Lux and Nico, need the money, and it's easy money. And so they get to the island, and there's this actual other couple there who I think are in their late 20s or early 30s. And so basically we're following these 6 people on this island. Weird, creepy things start happening on the island, but then also amongst the 6 of them. And then we're also flashing back to a before timeline, and it's following like all 6 of them in the before timeline. We're like seeing all of their lives before this trip, and then it all comes together in the end, and we realize all those things we learned were important and ended up all adding up, and we learned so much, and it gets so crazy. And this one, like I said, the other one is like a perfect mix between Daisy Jones and the Six and The White Lotus. This one, perfect mix between Lost and The White Lotus. So good. Absolutely love this one. And if you guys have any recommendations that like meet the vibes of these ones, please let me know, because I need more books like these. And then I can't get through a recommendations video without talking about The Housemaid. We all know this is my favorite book of all time. I love this book so much. I've read it twice now, and I love this book so much. I know that this is such a hyped up book on TikTok. There's a reason. It is so good. I love this book so much. I don't know why. There's just something about it. So in this book, we are following Millie, who is an ex-con, but we don't know why. We don't know why she's an ex-con yet, but basically she just got out of prison not too long ago. And so she's been on the search for a job, but very little places are willing to hire her. Actually, no places are willing to hire her because of her criminal record. And so she ends up going to this job interview, and it's a long shot because the interview is to be a housemaid for this very rich family, and she ends up getting it. She ends up getting the job, and so now she's working for this family that consists of Nina Winchester, Andrew Winchester, and Cecilia, who is their daughter. And so Millie is in charge of cooking, cleaning, taking Cecilia to school, all these little tasks she's in charge of now. But weird things start happening in the house, and with Nina, the wife, she starts acting really strange. And so Millie kind of is just like, what's going on? And I'm just gonna leave it there. If you have yet to read this book, if you think that there's no point reading it because it is so hyped up on TikTok, please read it. I have read it twice now, and the plot twists, actually, there's like several in this book. It's just so good. Okay, so the last genre for my book recommendations is just general fiction. So first up, we have The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This is a book that you absolutely need to read trigger warnings for. You need to look up trigger warnings before you touch this book, because it gets heavy into detail about sexual abuse and sexual assault and the R word. I don't know if I could say that on YouTube, but please just look up trigger warnings before you read this, because it gets heavily into detail at times about the situation that happened to our main character. So at the beginning of this book, we are following the morning after this really bad incident happens to her, and then we're following her over the span of her 4 years of high school. We start in freshman year and then we go through all 4 years, and we're basically just watching her, how she basically changes and lives with the memory and everything that this bad experience has done to her. And personally, as someone who has gone through something similar as our main character, I feel like it is such a realistic and such a beautiful depiction. I wouldn't say beautiful, but it's a very realistic, and I don't know how to explain it. It's very realistic to what victims go through, or some. I know everyone's experiences are different, but there was a lot that I could relate to this. Maybe if you're a victim, like I said, look up trigger warnings. If it's not something you're comfortable with, please don't read it. There were times when I had to push the book away. This took me like months to get through because it was so hard for me to be able to pick up at times. Again, it was so hard to read at times, but it just made me feel so seen. And some of the quotes in here are just so beautiful. So would highly recommend this, but it is a heavy book. So if you are comfortable with that, if you're prepared to cry, this is a good one. Okay, so next we have my queen, Taylor Jenkins Reid, my favorite author ever. We have Malibu Rising, which obviously so summer, and we are following 4 siblings who are the children of a very famous couple, Mick and Nina Riva. And these 4 siblings are basically throwing their annual huge party that all the celebrities in Hollywood go to. It's like this huge known party that every celebrity in Hollywood goes to. And so we have 2 different timelines, 2 different storylines in this book. So first we have the whole party timeline. So we're starting at, I think, like 7 a.m. or something. Yeah, we start at 7 a.m. and then we end at 7 a.m. the next day. So it's following along these siblings and their whole party throughout a 24-hour period. And then in between that, we are flashing back to when their parents first met and everything that they went through. And there's a lot of drama and a lot of very emotional topics that go on between all that. But I genuinely loved this book so much. It did slow down a little bit once we got to the party and we were sort of getting into different people's, like famous people's point of views. But I overall loved this so much. I love this whole little Hollywood series so much. So I would highly recommend this one. And lastly, we have another Taylor Jenkins Reid book, which is One True Loves. And this one, very emotional. This one deals with grief heavily. So if grief is something that's sensitive to you, definitely look up trigger warnings or just don't bother to read it at all. So in this one, we are following our main character Emma, and her high school sweetheart Jesse, they get married and they have this very happy life together until he ends up going missing and is presumed dead. And so then we are following her whole grief and everything she goes through after losing her husband and the love of her life. And eventually, years later, she ends up moving on and finding someone else. And then while they're out at dinner, Emma gets a call saying that Jesse was found alive. And so now we're following Emma, and she's trying to balance like the fact that her ex-husband, the once love of her life, her high school sweetheart, was now found alive, and her new fiance, her new life. We're seeing her like balance these 2 things, and it gets like so emotional. And just the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid handled the grief and just everything that Emma goes through in this book, I just thought was so beautiful. I think that this book is so incredible, so beautiful, and I would highly recommend it. I am so sick of talking. I know you guys are sick of me by now. My second camera battery of the day is about to die. So I'm gonna try to like speed round through my TBR as fast as possible. And I don't own some of the books, so I'm just gonna hold up the ones that I have and then just like put pictures of the ones that I don't have. And also I don't have descriptions for these books because I try to go into every book like as blind as possible, so I'm just gonna speed round these books to go as quick as possible because I've been talking for like an hour now and I just need to wrap up this video. So first let's talk about the new releases that I am so excited for. So first, I actually wasn't even like, I didn't even know Ali Hazelwood was coming out with a new book, but I saw this one, I read the description, I saw the cover, I was like, yep, adding that to my summer TBR. So first we have Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood, which actually came out yesterday that I'm filming this. It came out the 27th. And then we have It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan, which also came out yesterday. And then we have Atmosphere, one of my most anticipated reads of the entire year. My favorite author ever, Taylor Jenkins Reid, is coming out with another book. I'm so excited. It comes out June 3rd. You best believe I will be showing up to Barnes & Noble the second they open and getting that book. And then another book that I'm so excited for is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. And that one comes out July 22nd, I think. And now for the books that I own, these aren't in any like genre organized order whatsoever, so I'm just gonna speed around the ones that I have really quick. So first we have Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. And then we have The Roughest Draft, which I've seen such incredible things about. I can't wait to finally get to this one. Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welsh. The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. My first Ellen Hildebrand book ever, and I'm so excited to get to this. Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. So excited again to get into her books. Have heard such incredible things about her writing and her historical fictions. The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I've never known how to say his last name, but he's the author of The Silent Patient, and I loved The Silent Patient. Billy Summers by Stephen King. The Naturals. I would love to get through this whole series, but being that my summer TBR is so ambitious, I don't know if we will, but this is the only one that I have in the series, so I would love to at least start the series. Did I say the title of this? This is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And then this was my May pick for Book of the Month. We have The Names by Florence Knapp. And then All We Were Promised by Ashton Lattimore. And then for all the ones that I do not own, we have Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. Summer Sisters, I don't know who this is by. Mary Jane. The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, I'm pretty sure. The Wedding People. And then The Wife Upstairs, which is another Rachel Hawkins book. And so this is my very, very, very ambitious summer TBR. I will probably get to about half of those, maybe at most. Those are all of my summer book recommendations and my whole summer TBR, my very ambitious summer TBR. So let me know if you got any recommendations from this video. I know that most of these are really hyped up on TikTok, so you've probably heard of all of these books, but I'm recommending them again for a reason. They're so good and I would highly, highly recommend. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, I'm sorry for talking for an hour straight. I don't know how long this video will end up being, but I've been sitting here for an hour. I'm tired. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys so soon. Bye!